nobody really cares about silver in the sense of what goes on. I mean, if silver was at $100 today, so what? But gold is looked as a barometer of U.S. financial market health. And every time it goes up, it's bad. It's why they rig the price. I mean, it's bad for Wall Street, it's bad for the politicians, it's bad for incumbents. It's always a negative. That's what the headline says. Those are constantly suppressing this price to affect interest rates and the dollar. And it's been going on forever. And to make sure that there wasn't a big dichotomy and to show how glaring this suppression was, they realized they needed to suppress silver along with gold so that what they were doing to gold wouldn't stand out. And we think that they really are stretching it to a limit, in which case they're going to run out of physical silver to keep the price down where they are, as it is.
Silver investors could make a fortune. Billionaire Eric Sprott and other top gold analysts predict that silver will dramatically outperform the yellow metal. In order to maximize your exposure to silver, consider shares of Golden Arrow Resources trading on the TSX Venture under GRG and the US as GARWF, where insiders have accumulated 50% of the company, and billion-dollar giant Silver Standard Resources has taken an 8% stake in the company. This company has 250 million ounces of silver resources and is headed up by the one man who's responsible for the largest silver deposit discovery in history. Learn more at crushthestreet.com/silver100.
Hello everyone and welcome into crushthestreet.com. I have a very important guest today to speak to us about what is going on with precious metals and specifically why we are seeing them correct here with silver going down and gold moving down a little. Actually, gold recovered some, but silver is still below 20 now. And you know what? The markets are hinging on every word the Fed says. And we saw that happen with metals retracing this week and going into last week as well. And I'm going to explore this topic today with the one and only Bill Murphy. And after we discuss interest rates, we're going to be discussing the Achilles heel of the gold cartel. And I can't wait to get into it with him, Bill Murphy of GATA, and also Le Metropole Cafe, the founder of Le Metropole Cafe. Bill Murphy, thanks for joining me.
Great to be here, Kenneth. Thanks for having me.
Bill, let's start off with what we've seen in interest rates. We have a situation here where central banks are dumping long-term bonds to get higher interest rates and spoofing the markets into believing that there might actually be a rate hike, and we are seeing sharp spikes in the interest rates without them actually having to raise them. We've seen basically them rise by 25 basis points. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Yes, Kenneth. They've been going up recently here, the 10-year notes. It's back above 1.7, 1.74, and the LIBOR rate's gone up, and other interest rates over the world have gone up, and it spooked the markets a little bit. And then we've had this ad nauseum talk a week from today about what the Fed's going to do, and I mean, it's just going on forever. I mean, truly about nothing, and yet to the markets, it's a big deal. I understand that. But jeepers, criminy, a quarter point, yes or no? If we were talking about this subject 3 or 4 years ago, we'd be laughing about an interest rate that is so low, and how it spooks the market and what this gold cartel, as GATA would call it, how they go into action. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's... but that's my own opinion, but we have to deal with it, and other market participants are reacting to it. So it's just hard for me to imagine, knowing the establishment wants Hillary Clinton, that they would take a chance. We saw what could happen by raising interest rates, and I will have gotten, as will a lot of other people, that to me it's just not a chance in China that they could raise rates, but we'll see.
Well, what are your thoughts on how they've gone about essentially doing it without officially raising interest rates? Do they want interest rates to go up without spooking the markets?
Well, it's a good point. You know, there's a lot of talk about the banks in the world they don't want the markets to tank, but this low interest rate situation is not good for them, and it will stabilize them more. So it's a two-sided coin, but they've been down for so long, and how far can you go with this, zero to near zero to negative interest rates?
Well, the real controllers of the Fed, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, they might actually want a rate hike here. And, with the way we are seeing the actions in the interest rate market, it might suggest that they know something is coming than the rest of us don't. Would you agree with that?
Well, J.P. Morgan's not called the Fed's bank for nothing, and certainly they're big players. And if anybody has a clue to what's going on behind the scenes, they would be the top candidates.
Well, we know that the goal of the gold cartel is the suppression of the gold price. But you've pointed out that the Achilles heel of gold and the gold cartel is silver. So let's explore this for a moment here.
Well, it's just our own opinion, but basically the idea, nobody really cares about silver in the sense of what goes on. I mean, if silver was at $100 today, so what? But gold is looked as a barometer of U.S. financial market health. And every time it goes up, it's bad. It's why they rig the price. I mean, it's bad for Wall Street, it's bad for the politicians, it's bad for incumbents. It's always a negative. That's what the headline says. Those are constantly suppressing this price to affect interest rates and the dollar. And it's been going on forever. And to make sure that there wasn't a big dichotomy and to show how glaring this suppression was, they realized they needed to suppress silver along with gold so that what they were doing to gold wouldn't stand out. And we think that they really are stretching it to a limit, in which case they're going to run out of physical silver to keep the price down where they are. As it is, the smart guys like I know, supply-demand guys like David Morgan, Eric Spott, don't understand it. We haven't understood it for a while, and we think they're going to hit the wall pretty soon, hit a tipping point. And the first stage is 1850, and then the big one's 21, because once they get through there, that'll confirm what is happening at the moment, and that it could take off and be incredibly volatile. And we say it's the kryptonite because we think that's the Achilles heel. They're just going to run out of physical silver to carry on at these artificially low price levels.
Bill, there's been a lot of talk about the $21 level, and I want to get your thoughts a little more on that and just emphasize why $21, the $21 range is such a key turning point for silver, and why everyone's saying that will be the moonshot target for it going higher.
Well, it's funny. It's been that way all year. With 1850 was the first big stop. That completed a major bottom. I mean, it's a huge bottom in silver, what J.P. Morgan and the other gold cartel sorts have done, they've created, and it took at 1850 and exploded up to 21 pretty quickly, and that technically is the next spot. And it's like an indicator of, okay, if it gets by there, then the suppression at these lowly price levels has run its course, because they don't want the cat to get out of the bag and get out the door. And when it takes that out, it's going to encourage a lot of people to jump on board, for those of us to think silver's going to 50 and then 100, because it's gone on for so long that the move is liable to be dramatic. And in support of that, the silver open interest, even though it's come down from close to 225,000 to above 190,000, that number is still at all-time high levels set a few years ago. And of course, what we saw recently was a dramatic increase, and J.P. Morgan managed to whittle it down and get some of those weaker shorts out. But the open interest remains high. We think there's big players that are involved that know what's coming in the big picture, and they're just staying in there. And so we can, diddle around here for a while, but when it gets going and silver's taken out, the move is liable to be, very chaotic and volatile in style versus this laborious, tedious kind of price action we're seeing of late.
Bill, many people say that gold leads silver, and I kind of want to get your thoughts on this and what your analysis is here with silver being the Achilles heel. Does this analysis coincide with gold moving first? Well,
it's a good point. I don't really have too many thoughts on that. Either one could go depending upon what happens. Again, it's for me, the real key is not which one, but when silver hits the point where they can't come up with enough physical silver to meet demand. And that could come at any time and happen out of nowhere. Already, over the past months, we've seen these bizarre moves up in silver very, very fast, very quick, and then they get squashed. So I think it's a matter of the physical markets, which one hits the wall first. They're going to have trouble with gold supply, too, but as we've been talking about, silver's the critical one because they don't have any other central banks to go to where they can beg for the gold, or in this case, beg for the silver.
Yeah, the gold moving first and then silver following, that tends to be a more traditional price action. But what we're talking about here is essentially an anomaly, a black swan event, something major to shock the physical markets.
That's correct.
Bill, you made an interesting point in one of your prior interviews that I wanted to ask you about today, and that's what the world would look like with silver at $100 an ounce. And basically, you pointed out that because of distortions, silver at $100 would mean major global economic shifts. But in reality, you've pointed out that nothing should happen with silver at $100 an ounce. It should just be normal price actions. But it's the distortions that central banks have created that have made it a very, very volatile number for the world. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit here.
Well, you've got a good memory, Kenneth. I mean, and yeah, it's really not too complicated in a way. I mean, heck, we were at $50 silver in 1980, and did the world fall apart? No. It was at $50 in 2011. Did everything fall apart? No, it was all recovering. So silver goes 100, 125, 150, so what? I mean, the question is, as you're talking about, is what they've done to create such an artificially low level, what will it represent if gold and silver are going berserk at the same time, and what will all the headlines lead to, and what will it be interpreted? My favorite expression is price action makes market commentary. So they'd always come up with something that whatever fits their need at the time, even though it may not even be correct. But it would garner headlines, and that's what they don't want. One of their gold cartel's mantra is to squash excitement at all times, because it takes away from the financial market that they want higher. So, but yeah, I mean, $100 silver. I mean, I don't know. We should be close to that now, for crying out loud.
Well, Bill, you've proven yourself to be right time after time, and you've taken a lot of grief from the mainstream press, calling you guys, GATA, Bill Murphy, or you and your partner, Chris Powell, conspiracy guys. And I just want to ask you, I mean, have you gotten any credit for being right since they've talked all this trash about you?
No, not really. Even the gold silver industry doesn't want to hear from us very much. I mean, some of the conference leaders don't want us to speak. It's ironic because we're the most bullish people out there because we think we know what's coming when these things blow up because of what they've done. So we're the biggest supporters for the industry and higher prices and the gold, silver companies and so on. But because we're taking on all the money and power in the world, the establishment figures and everywhere just don't want to deal with it. It's kind of funny because all of a sudden, all day long, you hear about manipulation of markets and currencies and interest rates and this and that. That term is used very freely now, so you're correct. Or when it comes to gold and silver, it's like, oh my gosh, how could you talk like that? I think behind the scenes, it's becoming, people are very aware that gold and silver have been manipulated and what's happened. They just don't want to hear about it, don't want to talk about it, and I think it's a big issue, and someday it's going to become one of the biggest financial scandals in U.S. history because of what it caused. It won't because of gold and silver, but the distortion in the markets that you mentioned earlier, what it's created by not letting free markets, trade like they should. So one day it's going to be a big deal. In the meantime, Chris and I do what we can to get the word out there and let people know what's coming in the prices when this thing blows up.
Well, Bill, you got a fan in me and all of us here at Crush the Street, and we'll be sure to give credit where credit is due as the story plays out, and I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a very spectacular event. So if you would, please give everyone some information on GATA and your website, and if people want to learn more about what you do, where would they go and what would they find?
Sure. They can go to GATA.org and get on Chris Powell's list, and that's a freebie list. And Chris does a great job covering things. And I write my website is about the gold, silver markets and financial markets, LaMetropolcafe.com. And anybody who's interested can sign up for a 2-week free trial and then sign up if they feel it is of value. So been doing it since early 1998 and had a great time doing it.
Bill Murphy, everyone, of GATA and La Metropole Cafe. Bill, thanks for joining me.
Anytime, Kenneth. Take care.